So I've been reflecting a lot, as many of us do this time of year. Now, if you've been watching me for a while, you probably know that I've developed this amazing platform this year, which you can read about in the notes. And I've done so many exciting things, lecturing, teaching, and lots of other great things this year. But I've also had such amazing guests. And I really felt like at the end of the year, I wanted to sum up so much of what I've learned. And three topics kept on coming back to me over and over and over again because I feel that they are topics that need to be repeated. Not that the other guests aren't wonderful. I have wonderful guests and you should listen to all of the episodes. But I think these three topics are worth repeating. They are so important. Regardless of where you are in your family building journey, it is so important to take these three topics and cement them into your brain because they will not only improve your journey, but also could really improve your life. So join me today for the Building Your Family podcast. This is a podcast about fertility treatment, surrogacy, donor conception, and all the ways a modern family is built. And I'm so glad to be here with you today to wrap up 2024 with some really important points to review. And I'm going to review them by showing you some clips from some of our guests who highlight them so beautifully. So here are the three topics I think are really important. Number one, be true to yourself. I know that sounds hokey and people hear that all the time, but regardless of where you are emotionally, regardless of where you were politically this year, regardless of how you feel about your family building journey, it is so important to be true to yourself. Everybody's journey is different, which I will start to explain in a moment, but you need to start to think about how you're feeling, what's important to you, and to respect your journey and to get support. You know, if you don't get support and you don't calm your nervous system, then it's so much more difficult to absorb information. It's so much more difficult to make decisions, and it's so much more difficult to have the important relationships that we need to move forward. So get the support and be true to yourself. I'm going to share with you 4 short clips from people who really speak about this topic so beautiful. The first one is Nellie Joy. She's a country music star and has so much heart. She talks about her experience and how important it is to grieve and to understand how to be good to your heart. Second is Andrea Leone, and she's going to share with you how important it is to be true to yourself and not to criticize your feelings. Number 3 is Colton Underwood, who really epitomizes this idea because he was not able to build a family of his dreams without really being true to himself. And number 4 is Jay Palumbo. She's an advocate and a former fertility patient who shares with us how important it is to not feel alone, to get the support you need and be true to yourself and your experience. Because if you don't allow yourself to have your feelings, they just continue to bubble up to the surface. It is so important to get that support and have your feelings.
The biggest thing I would just try to encourage people to do is to not hold it in, because that's toxic. When you hold grief in, it will eat you up from the inside out. And I know better than to do that. So I've been actively purging it through my music, through therapy, through hanging out with friends, and through meeting people. I will say, after releasing baby showers, I've had a lot of amazing humans in town in Nashville just reach out and encourage me and tell me that they've gone through the same thing or they're going through the same thing. So I feel like I'm kind of cultivating a small little community here of cheerleaders where we can all kind of encourage each other. And that's awesome because I didn't really have that before.
People thought I was being negative, and it's not negative to speak about the demons you're dealing with inside of you.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. It is okay to say it out loud, because the more we keep that in, the more harmful it is to us, and let it out. Like, I'm sure there's people that are going to not appreciate hearing that or say all the wrong things once you do. But if you have a safe person you can speak to, or even a journal you can write into, or be like me and spill your beans online, and that's okay, because a lot of times I was not positive in my journey because I knew what it was like to have, that child taken from me, that baby death, all the hope taken from me.
Everybody in my family and my friends after I came out were very supportive. Before I came out, there wasn't a ton, and I'm to blame for that too. I didn't really keep a lot of gay people in my life or as friends just because it scared me that they would read between the lines and to see me for who I was.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't a lot of like support like that.
So you find that once you're true to yourself, the world can kind of open up for you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it just is so transformative for me as a human being, and also just it was like I was starting from birth again. I sort of have like a new lease on life, and I approached things differently. I was more in touch with who I was, my feelings, what I wanted out of this world, and really just freed me up.
Sharing my story took my power back. I know that sounds really cliche, but the more I talked about it, the more I found other people who were going through it. And I know we say that all the time, like, oh, you're not alone, but you still feel alone.
Yes.
You do.
Next is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and that is to get real research-based information. I know it's difficult. When you're going through your family building journey, this is so important, and you feel vulnerable, you feel overwhelmed, you feel anxious, and it's very natural to fall prey to false promises on the internet. But it's so important to think clearly about the decisions you make. Many decisions you make are difficult to unwind down the line. And it's so vitally essential to do what you can to get the right information. And now you're going to hear short clips from 5 people who will tell you why this is so important. First is Dr. Ali Domar. She is a researcher and a psychologist who was the first person that understood and shared with us how depressing and anxiety-producing family building can be. Next, you will hear from Dr. Justin Heumann, who's a urologist. Then you will hear from Dr. Serena Chen, a reproductive endocrinologist, Dr. Amy, who's a loved social media influencer and reproductive endocrinologist, and last from Dr. Rebecca Diamond, a pediatrician.
There's so many people who take advantage of people who will do anything to have a baby.
Yes.
And our
Terrible.
patients are so vulnerable. And I keep on telling my patients, if you're talking to any kind of practitioner, whether or not they're a licensed anything, I said, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. Be really suspicious because there's a science here. We have a pretty good sense of what decreases fertility and what increases fertility, but be really careful about things like, I've had patients who said, well, my acupuncturist told me to not eat cold foods. I'm like, come on, there's no data that says It's very frustrating because people are suffering enough from their infertility and they don't need to suffer more because of something someone has said to them.
Male factor infertility is quite common and relatively easy to treat when we're able to diagnose it early on.
And how does someone know that they have male infertility?
Really, the only way of knowing is by doing a semen analysis. A lot of times couples are trying for 3, 6, 12, some 12 months, sometimes a couple years before they even come in to do a semen analysis. Once they do that semen analysis, they see that they're having infertility issues or their semen counts are low, and hence the reason the male is responsible for some of those issues. There's no signs or symptoms associated with male infertility. It's not like you feel that you have low sperm counts.
But Dr. Google didn't go to medical school, so you can really get into trouble. But there are a lot of good sources of information out there, like the American Society for Reproductive Medicine puts out a lot of patient information. Organizations like the March of Dimes, American College of OBGYN, the CDC, the WHO, there are really good sources of good vetted information that's accurate. You can't follow just anybody, online because there are a lot of people calling themselves doctors and they're not actually physicians. And there is a lot of crazy stuff out there.
Yes.
But if you start with some of these sources that are established, then I think you can get some good information.
They're the 5 steps that every fertility patient should make sure that they have to get to a diagnosis. And it's truly tubes, uterus, sperm, hormones, and your genetics. People can then take that information, go to their OBGYN and say, can you check my tushy? I would hope that, maybe in my lifetime, people would be like, yes, I know exactly what that means. And I can get these tests done for you. Because like you said earlier, Lisa, if you have a diagnosis, then you know what your treatment options are. And then you know what your pregnancy rate is for each treatment. Then you can choose the right treatment path for you based on the family size that you want. And every family looks different, and that's okay. And it's just important to know what your options are from the beginning.
It's this fear-based sort of creating some sort of rigid expectation because it's exploiting a real anxiety that's there as a parent. To be a parent is to live in a state of fear and panic, especially nowadays when we don't have the support we need. We don't have the societal and, and structural support we need. And if you're coming at this with even fewer supports than I had, whether you're just having one parent in the family or you don't have the same societal support because you have a non-traditional family, you're coming into this with so much understandable anxiety. But the problem is, instead of having people and resources say, okay, here's some good information, here's how you find your way and make the right choices and feel more confident, we have this whole world of online information that's saying the opposite.
And my third point is to remind you that everyone's path is different. Just because you see things on the internet, just because you hear stories, just because you worry, doesn't mean that it's true. Everybody's experience is different and everybody's path is different. And you're going to hear 4 quick clips that illustrate that. Number 1 is Becky Kearns, who's a donor egg mom, an advocate, and a lovely person. Number 2 is Ben Sanderson, who is a donor-conceived person, and he has 40 siblings, and he is happy about it, believe it or not. Third, you're going to meet the Sharon Moms. They're a lesbian couple who built their family with donor sperm. And last, you're going to meet 4 people who make a beautiful team and created a baby together. So I hope you enjoy these clips. There's no prescription for how someone is going to grieve the loss of their genetic connection. Yeah. For some people, it's much easier, and for some people, it's much harder, right? And everybody has their own path. And just because it's much harder for you doesn't mean that it won't happen. It just means that it may take some time.
Absolutely, yeah. And I hear that from people all the time. I've had some people say, I've heard you talk about how hard it was, and I've not found it hard. Is there something wrong with me? And I've said, no, just everybody's different. But also, I've spoken with people who have come to the decision that it isn't right for them. And I think that's equally important when we're talking about this, that people realize that you don't have to go down this path, that it's an option that's there and it's available, but it won't be for everybody.
Throughout this whole thing, I've really tried to keep it about my journey and my experience, because I don't want to represent my siblings' experiences because they're all different. Like, I am one of 41 stories. One really tricky thing about doing the People magazine article and, talking about it online is it's really important to me to keep my siblings' privacy, because I am much more open about it than they are. And I don't want to tell anyone else's story. I just don't really feel like it's my place, especially since my donor donated anonymously. He did that for a reason. I cannot reveal anything about him online.
Every person is different. Every culture is different. Every experience is different. Every family is different. And it's so beneficial, I think, for people to know this, because so many patients come in worried that if I have a child, that child's going to hate me for using a donor. That child's going to grow up to be a person who resents it, or feels like if you can't co-parent, you shouldn't be a parent. Some of these things, which I appreciate that some people feel that way, but people feel that their child is destined to feel that way. I just ran a group last night, and most of the parents were terrified, queer, single, or heterosexual. All of them, like universally, were worried about this topic.
Totally like a first date. Yeah.
It was like almost like an arranged marriage where you're like, we're doing this really intense thing. I'm already so obsessed with you in a weird way. It feels too deep for how long I've known you, but like it's there and it's real. Sometimes the arranged marriages are great.
I hope you enjoyed those clips, and I hope it helped you highlight these 3 important facts. Number 1, it is essential to honor your journey. You need to be sensitive to your feelings. Nobody's feelings are wrong or right, and you need to take the shame away from your feelings and get the support that you need so you can reach your goals. Number 2, to reach your goals, you also need evidence-based information. It is so crucial to get the right information. Number 3, you need to understand that just because other people have all sorts of experiences, it doesn't mean that you will have the same. Your path to parenthood and your parenting journey may be different from your neighbors or from your friends, and you need to honor your own path to parenthood and your own parenting experience. So I hope that helped you, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I am so grateful to be here and so grateful that you are spending your time with us. We are here to serve you. It is my passion to help you have a better path to parenthood and a better parenting experience. So anything that we can do for you, we are here to do. Please write to me. I get emails all the time from listeners. So please reach out to me at familybuilding.net. Email me anytime. And if we're missing something, please let me know. So have a wonderful 2025, and we can't wait to see you in the new year. Hi, it's Lisa Schumann. I hope that you enjoyed that video, and I hope it helped you. And if it did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe, because that's how we keep going. It's really important to us. And if you liked it, you might like this one.